Good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, my sincere thanks to Professor Bruckner, who enabled me to speak in front of you, and of course our gratitude to the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, to Director Mark Donfried, who is kindly hosting us here today. For somebody who is not a professional speaker or professor or teacher, and who usually speaks only to officials or dignitaries or journalists or similar people, it is always exciting to speak to students, especially to students who come from different parts of the world than the countries that Uli enumerated, where I had the privilege to serve. So I'm really happy and honored to be here again, and I understand that you are having summer in winter and that you are trying to make the utmost use of your stay here in Berlin, in Germany, in Europe. I was given another privilege to basically choose the topic. It was rather broad, rather vague. Croatia and the European Union. That should be some kind of general title, but please feel free to ask any additional questions later on if you feel that we didn't go straight to the topic you would like to hear in details. Besides the old collaboration and friendship, as Professor Bruckner said already, I think one of the reasons why I was chosen and given the opportunity was the fact already mentioned that Croatia is the youngest, the latest member of the European Union, and I want to stress so far, because this is an organization that has the core, yeah, it's not always that dark there, but EU has its bright sides. Does the mic work? Yeah, okay. So it is the organization that wants to enlarge and that basically wants to encompass the whole European continent sooner or later. And I know that you did have lectures about the basics of the EU, that you do have certain knowledge already, be it here from Berlin, be it in course of your preparations for this trip. But you must try to figure out what the situation in Europe after the World War II was. Not only that the Europe was divided, but the big part of Europe suffered the consequences of the war, be it physically, be it because some cities were destroyed around Europe. Not only that so many millions of people were killed, that practically every family had somebody who suffered directly. Not only that there was poverty, you had to reconstruct the continent, the countries, the cities after that, but also you had psychological and political consequences. So the brave idea of some great people, you heard about them and you will learn about them, was to try to create some common sense in the divided and ruined Europe. And what do you start with? You start with some realistic categories like economy. And what was the main source, the main resource at that time? It was not oil, it was not uranium, it was not IT technology, it was coal and steel. So the first community which was created in 1956 was in fact the European Community for Coal and Steel. And that was the nucleus of the European Union as we have it now. It consisted only of 6 countries. Later on, this process led us to the situation where this association, European Union, was not only association for purpose of promoting trade in coal and steel, to promote the, now we would say, energy supplies and security of the continent. But it was the association which had really much broader meaning. And we see where we stand now after 50, almost 60 years. So after this first stage, the economic development, the economic cooperation started to develop in 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. There were waves of enlargement, and by the fall of the Berlin Wall, there were already 12 members of the European communities at that time. The name was changed in the early 90s, European Union as we have it now. Then we had another 3 countries joining in 1995. And with those 15, we were waiting for consequences of the fall of the Berlin Wall, for the consequences of the end of the Cold War. And that happened in 2004 with a big bang. 10 new countries, most of them from former Eastern Europe, joined the EU. So we did have 25, 2007, Bulgaria and Romania, 27, and a year and a half ago, Croatia, 28. Now we have 28 members. Now, you may ask, what was the purpose of it? It was not only economy, although economy is the basis of everything. It was the reunification of the continent, reunification on certain values, common values. And these common values you cannot understand unless you put it in the post-World War II context, which meant peace, development, freedom, justice, human rights, all those values that we see today as granted. But not even in Western countries was it the case just like that, and particularly not in Eastern European countries. So this concept is developing good, and not to underestimate the element of culture, of common values through culture, and stressing it not only because we are here in the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, but because the culture is the amalgam, is the mean to put those values and people together. Now, where does Croatia stand, and why did Croatia want to join European Union? First of all, I don't know how many of you do know the history of my country. Like most of the European countries, it had a rough history. But I will not speak about what happened 1600, 1700 years ago. We don't have too many witnesses still alive. But I would rather like to speak shortly, beginning from the early 20th century, which means that Croatia at that time was the part of Austro-Hungarian monarchy. It was not an independent state. It lost its independence in 12th century, so many, many, many centuries ago. And since then, it was always a part of some bigger kingdom. Now, World War I came. Croatia was part of Austro-Hungarian monarchy. The war ended, as we all know how it ended. The monarchy fell apart, and Croatia had to fight for its own independence. So the solution, partly dictated from big powers in Versailles Agreement, 1919, was to have a common state of all South Slavic nations. And the state of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes was created, which was renamed later on Yugoslavia. And it was, we call it the first Yugoslavia, which was under the Serbian kingdom, so dominated by royalism, and Croats did not feel comfortable there, not only for general human rights issues, social rights, but also national rights, because there was not equality and no national freedom in that country. In the World War II, horrible things happened, like all around Europe. And after that, second Yugoslavia was created, saying that we will all now be equal and that everybody will have equal shares and equal rights. It ended with a war in 1990, where Croatia, as one of 6 constitutional republics of former Yugoslavia, was attacked by federal army and paramilitary troops from one neighboring country, and the country, Yugoslavia, dissoluted. It simply didn't function anymore. The parliament couldn't adopt any decisions, the presidency couldn't elect the president, and it simply fell apart, and Croatia declared its independence. So, it is a small country. It is a country of 4.3 million people, and I think most of you come from bigger countries. So it's a country which is the size of Berlin, a bit bigger. Berlin plus Potsdam. It is a very beautiful country. It belongs partly to Central Europe, and if you travel, you will see the typical Central European architecture, typical Central European way of cooking, and I must say, way of thinking, including educational system, way of thinking where people are constantly complaining about everything, which is not uncommon here. Then you have the Mediterranean part, which is famous for tourism, and where you eat like in Italy, or even better, where you drink good wine, where you have a nice time, enjoy your life. But partly it's situated also in southeastern Europe, or Balkan Peninsula, so we have all these 3 elements geographically, historically, culturally, environmentally, whatever. Now, in these circumstances, you get your own statehood after 9 centuries. You must choose your own way in the situation where finally the Second World War, which lasted through Cold War, prolonged for 45 years, falls apart. And you find your way. Where do you want to go? To the association, which gives prosperity, which promises good organization, good work, human rights, common values that we all share. So Croatia wanted to join European Union. And in the first national political multi-party elections in 1990, all relevant political parties, literally all, said in their program, Europe. Europe meant European Union. So there was a sense of a national union about that idea, about that program. We did not leave behind the Iron Curtain. Our people were free to travel, to watch foreign TV, to read all kinds of newspapers, to study abroad. So our people were realistic. They knew what European Union means. They knew that you can make a good living, that you can have a good job, that you can make decent money, but you had to earn it. So people were relatively realistic. At that time, only in Western Berlin, we had 500 Croatian restaurants. Now we have 100. Visit them. We had 400,000 people working in Western Germany at that time. We had over 4 million people living and working abroad. You would be astonished to hear where. The biggest community in Chile, Western Coast, Southern California, Argentina, Brazil, Switzerland, whole Europe. So together with Ireland or Israel, I think that we have the ratio of the people living at home and living abroad is approximately 1 to 1. So The European Union idea with all its common values was a challenge. Now, which ideas there are? Economic progress, open market, customer union, human rights in most general sense of this word, a legal system, rule of law, everything that we want to promote and to have in our own country. And we didn't have it always. It promised progress, steady peace. And for you and your generation, it may seem, peace, it's a nice word. We are all aware of that. But for countries like mine, and unfortunately many others around the world, it's not taken as granted. It really took efforts, and it took victims, and it took wars, and it took a lot of misery to have this. So for us, peace is big concept, big value, not just one word. Economic progress is always mentioned, but people knew that by joining we will not automatically have double salaries. No. But we will have better organization, better legal system, better judicial, better economic system, better social system, social services, which would enable us to live decently, to work, and to progress. So we applied. After the war, we tried to apply for the membership, and the reaction of European Union was gradual. If we didn't have the aggression and the war and the need to reconstruct the country after the war, we would probably be qualified to join the European Union within this big bang in 2004. But we were not that lucky, so we had to wait some years more. And in 1999, European Union suggested creation of a process of stabilization and association, SAA, which would encompass countries of the region, including Croatia. Still, it didn't work equally in all countries, so Croatia was the first to initiate and sign the Stabilization Association Agreement in 2001. In 2003, Croatia applied for the membership. And you know where this announcement was being made? A few blocks away, in Auswärtigen Amt. And I was lucky enough to be present there. 2004, the positive opinion on our candidate status was issued by EU. In 2005, we opened the negotiation process. The negotiation process meant you had to have 120,000 pages translated, but not only translated, but implemented in our national regulation, in our national legal system, economical system, social system, you name it. The whole structure of society had to be adapted. So that's why you cannot just say, I want to be the member of the club, and then people around the table like you, and they say, welcome. No, you must qualify. You must implement it in your internal legal and other systems. The negotiations lasted for a very long time. They lasted until December 2011, when they were successfully concluded, which means that some people were really frustrated with the length of negotiations. But on the other hand, it gave us time and opportunity to prepare. So I can say freely that Croatia was the most prepared country to join European Union, more prepared than the ones that entered before, although they did have time to make it up during their membership. So we are somewhere there. Of course, we had to have a referendum in our own country whether the people want to join, and the majority said yes. And as of July 1st, 2013, we are full-fledged members. Now, what are the benefits and what are the weak sides? You know, there's never in life everything black and white. There's always some gray zone. people, first of all, always think of how much money do we have to pay and how much money do we get back from that. That's very simple. I have the latest figure, 2014. We had to pay to the EU budget 460 million euros, which we did. And through various projects, we got from the EU budget 548 million euros, which means 88 million euros plus, which is not big money, but we are not a big country. So it is a good start. Now, before we joined, we had the right to have a IPART program, which is the pre-accession funds for certain projects. And it lasted several years. So about 800 various projects were implemented: agriculture, fisheries, development, and so on and so forth. Out of what was agreed, 94% has been implemented, which is very good. Now, one of the economic elements of the European Union is not only financing, not only a budget or how much do I pay, how much do I get. It is also some common mechanisms. For example, there are some countries in Europe, Croatia including, that have excessive budgetary deficit. Everybody wants to get rid of it. Germany was the first one this year to get rid of it after 1969, and it is a great achievement. The regulation of European Union is that one should not have deficit higher than 3%. 3% is big money. We were in the situation to have it almost, or at a certain stage, over 5%, which is not dramatic, but is not good. So after 2 years, we entered the process, the procedure of excessive deficit, EDP, which has the aim to force us to lower the expenditures and to have the budgetary deficit 3% until 2017, or end of 16, early 17. And I must tell you that it works, because you know, in every country, people used to say, yeah, it's okay, but let's try to save money next year, not this year. Now, when you have this outer pressure, and that is the quality of common things in European Union, you have no room to reflect. You must implement it. And the first results are already there. Last year was relatively good, and I think that I'm quite sure. I think that we will. I'm sure that we will make it on time, but I think we will make it even before time. So our finances, our financial system will be completely stabilized. Without European Union, it would be very hard. So you don't always have direct impact. You have indirect. You have regulations which really enable you to export freely to the whole common market of European Union. And I know that in many parts of the world, there are similar associations which try to promote common trade, customs-free trade. I see a lot of you come from the Asian countries. ASEAN is one excellent example how it works. I'm not mentioning NAFTA, Canada, US, and Mexico. It's an old story already. But in many parts of the world, you have similar initiatives, including some in African Union, which is trying to implement some of the aspects of the European Union. So I think that it really shows how broad the initiatives of EU are. Public debt. Public debt should be, in this procedure, under 60%. We have it somewhat higher, and we will regulate it through those measures as well. So a lot of positive consequences of joining EU. Nothing comes automatically. You see that some countries that are in EU do have troubles, do have problems. So you do have political movements that really question the validity of EU as such, and you have it in almost all countries, be it on the right-wing spectre or left-wing spectre, or even not directly linked with these divisions. But the majority of the political, the mainstream of politics, the majority of the population do support the concept of EU in all countries, and I think that every process has its ups and downs. And here I would like to stress one thing that I heard from my German friends very, very specifically said, but I think we can all agree. For the first time, you do have a generation like yours to who we can say, you will probably not live better than my generation did. Unemployment is high. In Spain, youth unemployment is 50%. In Italy, it's 40 and something. In Croatia, 40%. Portugal had a high youth unemployment rate. And it takes years and years to remedy it. So it will not come automatically. After World War II, every generation lived better and better. Every year or every several years, you had better living standard. You had more freedom to travel. You had less restrictions. In European Union, you have the Schengen Agreement, whereby you can travel without passports. Not every EU country is the member of this agreement yet, but it will be. Croatia will apply in the second half of this year, and we hope to get the status very soon as well. So the idea is to have the free circulation of people, of goods, of ideas, of services, no restrictions, but it brings some additional problems. How to control the borders, how to control security. I'm deliberately not mentioning yesterday's tragical events in Paris, in France, but these things are if you have open borders, if you don't have internal controls, then you have certain risk. But issues of terrorism will not be remedied by closing the borders. They will be remedied by much, much broader concepts, including education, including economic development, including intercultural dialogue, including many, many other measures, plus, of course, police, security, intelligence, and everything else. Not one measure can solve the problem. So let's enjoy the freedom of movement, which my generation did not have. When you traveled from my hometown to Berlin, you had to cross 3 or 4 borders, to show passport each time, to change currency. You want to go to Netherlands, you had to change currency again. There were no credit cards at that time when I was young. So it was much, much more complicated. For your generation, it's granted. You take your ID or passport, buy your ticket, and there you are. For us, it is a big achievement. For us, it is a big achievement. We have peace. For you, it's normal situation. For us, it is a big achievement that you can work or study anywhere. You don't have to have a particular license or permit or whatever. For us, it was an adventure. So just don't be misled. These values are wonderful, but they are not granted once and for all. You must always stand behind them. I'm not saying fight for them. We are not in war. But you must stand behind them and promote them and try to keep them alive, because these values are not irreversible. And these values are core of European Union. These values are a reason why countries like Croatia wanted to join EU, and despite some negative aspects, and I will tell you later which ones, it is worth joining, and it is a good concept and good idea. Of course, we don't think that this process is finished until whole Europe is there. Some countries can go faster, some countries can go slower. Our imminent goal is to have our neighbors from the rest of the region to join the EU, because Croatia cannot be happy and satisfied unless we don't have our neighbors happy and satisfied, secure, stable, developed, and so on. So we help and promote the advancement of our neighbors. One of the measures, not only on political level, of course, that goes without saying, one of the concrete measures, 120 pages that we translated, and we have so similar languages that some say that they are equal languages. Some say they are just understandable and similar. Let's not discuss it now, but we gave those pages free of charge to all countries of the region, so they can use them, they can much easier translate it from Croatian to their language than from English or French. And it costs money and it takes time. So these are concrete measures that we are trying to help our neighbors and friends. You see what happens on the very east of Europe, Ukraine, and it's not developing in a good direction, but I'm sure that on a long run, it will go in the right direction as well. Not necessarily direct membership. There are many, many ways to have common values and common work and common goals, living together and promoting those values in many, many, many different forms. And then I think that's the nucleus how the whole world can look like. You see that there are so many people from around the world here in Berlin, and that's a normal flow of population. So you cannot isolate one place. You will not be able, and you should not isolate Europe just like any other place. But let's have a European Union, let's have European countries, a torch of the values that we promote: peace, freedom, economic and social advancement. I promised you at the end to say what are the weak sides. Of course, theoreticians would say, yes, once when you join the club, it's not easy to get out. You lose a part of your sovereignty. That is correct, but you lose it voluntarily. There's no flexibility. If the European Central Bank says you must save, then you must save, then you cannot discuss it in your parliament, and so on. It's all right. We understand it. The weak side is a common foreign and security policy. It's very hard to have in some situation to have a common interest and to formulate the common foreign policy. We see it in many, many daily occasions. But probably the most painful is the restrictions we have on producing at home our homemade fruit brandy. You can have only 40 liters a year, which is for some people not enough. Or you can have your own homemade sausages. Now you are limited in the quantity. And that's painful for some people in my country. But let it be the worst thing we have from European Union. The good things really, really do prevail. And I hope that I did picture you a little bit of how European Union works, what it is about, and the mechanisms you will learn in the course of your study here. I'm open to any question. I thank you for your attention very much.